Welcome to episode 222 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I look back on 2018 and tell you what I've learned.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who wants to see you at the next conference you attend, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and I am looking forward to seeing you at the next conference you attend. If you've got a suggestion, please send me a tweet or send me an email. You can contact me by a multitude of ways. If you've been listening for a little while, you will know these, but I'm going to do it again if you're a new listener. You can contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Sean Callanan. Find me there, send me an invite, and actually tell me that you listen to the podcast. I have no problems hitting accept when someone says they listen to the podcast. Or you can send me a tweet at Sean Callanan, or you can look at what Sports Geek is doing at Sports Geek on most platforms. So, 2018 is nearly over. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to sort of look back on what I've done and what we've done in the last 12 months and some of the things that I've learned along the way, both from doing the podcast and the work that we do with Sports Geek, and a few of the highlights of 2018. So it might seem a little self-indulgent, and hopefully you enjoy it, but it sort of gives you a bit of behind the scenes of what I do when I'm not podcasting. And then I'll give a bit of a recap of the stats for 2018. So if I go all the way back to January, for those of you who are listening earlier in the year or previous years, in January I was in Europe and was I was really lucky to catch up with good friends and podcast listeners and sort of get a bit of better understanding of the European sports scene and things that are happening. So it was really good to catch up with Jesper Nylholm in Denmark and spend a few days with him and have him put me through the paces in the Danish Olympic facility, and then also catch up with another guest who I then spoke to on the podcast, Johannes Walhert from Swedish basketball. We caught up when I was in France. And so January was a little bit a time off, a holiday. I hadn't had one for a while, and looking forward into 2019. There will be no holidays in January at Sports Geek with the upcoming OPL season, but really enjoyed my time in Europe, and it was one of the highlights of the year. Moving into February, some of the different work that we were doing, we were building chatbots. We built a chatbot for the International Ice Hockey Federation around the junior games, and developed that and playing around in the chatbot space. Also did a bit of athlete training. Did another session with the Matildas, and the Matildas are the women's football team, national football team, soccer of Australia. It's about the third or fourth time I've done a digital training session with the Matildas. They are one thing I can say in sort of doing it multiple times is, especially with them, is they've been so open to learning, and the sessions are always fun because I allow them to ask the stupid questions, which they're allowed to, in say, how do I use this? How can I best use this? Or I don't like doing this. And normally it's the last 15 minutes of the workshop that some of the best stuff comes out. But they're really doing a great job on social and digital, and then also on the park. So it's always fun to catch up with the Matildas and talk to them about how they're going about building their digital presence. Also did some work with the Com Games, sort of reviewing what they were planning to do. The Commonwealth Games that were held here in Australia and were a massive success. So there was some stuff, some workshop and reviewing of the plans and from a digital and resourcing point of view that I did in February. And then March was pretty much, the AFL season and the NRL season starts kicking off in earnest. So that always takes a big chunk of our time as the season kicks off. But then also, sort of along the lines of the athlete training and following the workshop with the Matildas, we did some work with the PFA, the Professional Football Association, sort of looking at what does digital look like from a players' association point of view, and what does a player education piece look like, and that's something that's been a developing piece of work for us throughout the year, helping the player associations understand that digital education piece, and so that's developed in a little bit more work with a few other associations. April. Looking back at April, it was really it was sort of starting to pick up the travel, and so I did some really enjoyable speaking gigs with Sport and Rec Queensland across 3 dates in Queensland. And for those of you who don't know, I guess, your geography in Australia, Australia is a really, really, really big country, and Queensland is a really, really big state in that really, really big country. And so it was good to see a few different parts of Queensland, in Cairns and Mackay and Brisbane, but then also talk to people working in grassroots sports, but then also connect with fellow speakers like former Australian coach John Buchanan and hear his story about leadership and what how he works with teams and elite teams. So it's always good to hear from other speakers and their story and what their, I guess, how sport can connect people. It was a few, start racking up the frequent flyer miles, but it was really just pre-season, because July, as is usual for me in July, I've just skipped ahead. I've gone from April to July. That's how fast this year has gone. It seems like that, but I'm skipping over May. And May, again, there was a lot of client work happening, but then also it was a short but really productive trip to the US and Canada to go to C2 Montreal. I really enjoyed C2 Montreal. I'm most likely going to go back in 2019. I just enjoyed both the content, the people, the networking opportunities. For those of you who don't know C2, it is founded by the team that built Cirque du Soleil and Sid Lee, the agency Sid Lee. And so it's where business meets creativity. And so if you're interested in user experience, experiential marketing, how to market an event, how you can do events differently, and how, I guess, Cirque does events, I'd highly suggest going to C2 in Montreal in May. Really enjoyed it. And it also allowed me to have a short 3-day stop in San Francisco, which allowed me to go to a Giants game, see the Warriors in the NBA playoffs, and thank you, Brew, for the tickets, and thank you, Stacey, for being my +1. Getting to catch up with Stacey McGrainer at the Sharks, and then recording, I think, what must be, I guess, it was a podcasting highlight to record 3 podcasts in one day. Firstly with Stacey McGrainer from the San Jose Sharks, then El Guido in his offices at Levi Stadium, and then Bill Schlau sitting in the ballpark, sitting in the dugout at AT&T Park. And definitely one of my highlights of 2018, that weekend, to be able to check out some games and then record 3 podcasts in the one day. It was a highlight and had a lot of great feedback, and I'll sort of go through some of the stats later. A lot of fun. And then just to keep myself seasoned on the travel, June, I completed the Queensland Sport and Rec tour, and then July it was back on a jet, back to Dallas. Seat this year was in Dallas. I really enjoyed Seat. Christine Stoffel and the team did an amazing job. As always, the people are amazing. I love catching up with all of my friends at Seat. It is like a a sports business high school reunion with so many familiar faces and so many great discussions, both in the panel sessions, but also in and around the bars and corridors and things like that. And what I was really pleased with Seat Dallas was the launch of Digital to Dollars as a workshop and doing that as a format. So to do the Digital to Dollars process in a large room with 300 sports executives, with my very capable digital coaches. Thank you to Jane Busman-Wise, Jesper, Nyholm, and Zach Monette, who very capably supported the room. But to go through the 5 pillars of Digital to Dollars with 300 people in 45 minutes to an hour, I think it was so much fun. And we got a lot of great feedback from that. I know it's a format that I will continue to improve, but to be able to go through the 5 pillars of the Digital to Dollars process of know your audience, know your content, know your distribution, know your value, and know your pitch, and get really good feedback. It definitely helped refine the wider workshop. And I was really happy with it as a deliverable, and I'm really thankful that Christine let me try a new format to move away from the keynote or the four people talking on a panel. I really enjoyed the format and getting everyone involved and the energy in the room. And for those of you who were in the room and remember the AV. The AV guy hitting the buzzer to get your attention. Another big moment and memorable moment. So for those who participated, thank you very much. From Seat, I left and went to Podcast Movement. I was actually meant to be speaking at Podcast Movement at the same time that I was doing the Digital to Dollars workshop. So I'm very good. I do stretch myself. I do try to be as many places at once, but I have not yet figured out a way to do 2 speaking engagements on the same day. So unfortunately I had to cancel that speaking engagement with Podcast Movement, but I was lucky enough to get to Philadelphia in enough time to catch the end of the conference and to catch up with my friends in the podcasting space and look and learn more about the developments, especially around analytics in podcasting and some of the new types of formats that are coming out from a podcast point of view. I'm still super bullish on podcasting, especially in the sports space. I think it's relatively underutilized. It's a relatively low cost form, depending on the types of format of content to develop, but it has a very long tail, and for mine, it's easily monetizable. So I'm looking forward to doing a few more podcast projects in 2019, both under the Sports Geek banner, under SG Esports, and with our new OPL team. So if you are interested in podcasting in some way in 2019, please get in touch. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. I'm very much a big believer in better content in the podcasting space will grow the industry and grow the commercial opportunities if there is better content. So I'm more than happy to help you create better content. But enjoyed Podcast Movement and Seat as a double header, and I'm looking forward to heading back to Seat in Daytona in 2019, and then Podcast Movement is in Orlando. So I'll be in that part of the world, July 2019. And then the other thing that I did in July was a workshop with the Washington Redskins. So it was great to catch up with Jen Hinkle and Steve Ziff, who was still freshly in the new role there at the Redskins, to talk to them about what they were trying to tackle from a digital point of view. So it's always good to, as much as I love chatting with people over Skype or GoToMeeting, sometimes in real life workshops are a completely different, and I really enjoy them. So again, if it's something that you're interested in, I'm more than happy to hop on a plane and help you out. Which brings me back to August, and one of the big things in August from Sports Geek's point of view was the launch of Sports Geek Nation. So sportsgeeknation.com was launched in August. It was a result of conversation at C2, actually, in talking about the Sports Biz Slack community and where that was going. I've been absolutely humbled by the response of people signing up. Stay tuned for the end for some announcements on Sports Geek Nation. But yeah, the community there is terribly giving and generous of their time in answering questions and connecting. And so, yeah, I've been absolutely thrilled with that as a community. If you haven't joined, stay tuned for the end of this for an opportunity to do so. And then there was the last part of August was two big events. So one was the E.J. Whitten Legends Game. I worked with the E.J. Whitten Foundation again, Nick Holland, the CEO there. They took the game to Adelaide. And so that was a fun experience to head to Adelaide Oval for the E.J. Whitten's game. You can do all the planning in the world, but you cannot plan for weather. It was a really, really wet night, but they put on a show. It was a lot of fun, did really well on TV and digital, so it was fun. And then I came back to Melbourne to check out the Melbourne Esports Open, just as an interested observer at Rod Laver Arena, to sort of, again, see how the esports space is developing and some of the opportunities in the space. Little did I know a couple months later I would be in the space, but it was definitely something that definitely helped me understand the esports space, and then obviously chatting with Damien DeBowen post that on the podcast with Visit Victoria. I think you'll understand why I really like the Esports Open. September was dominated, from my eyes anyway, as a Collingwood fan, was with the Collingwood doing so well in the AFL finals and only falling short by a small margin in the grand final. But I really enjoyed attending all of the final series as a mad Collingwood supporter, but be able to experience that with my brothers and my son, again, massive highlight and something that you know as that I'll cherish, even though we lost. But for me, you know, one of the reasons I started Sports Geek is that I am a sports fan, and so being able to go to a game and be fully invested emotionally as a sports fan helps me understand fans and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so, yes, I go to a Collingwood game and I become a sports fan, or I am a sports fan. I don't become it. It's part of my identity. But to a certain degree, it's also market research. I'm looking at what the fans are doing, how they're interacting, both in the stadium and online. And so it's a really important part of what I do and why I do what I do and where my opinions are formed. So, you know, it's always fun when your team's on a roll, and it is terribly gutting when you don't quite get there. But yeah, I really can't complain about Collingwood September. It was a lot of fun. But one thing that was happening while that was happening was the process to bid for a slot in the OPL. So that was sort of that did dominate September and October. It was a thoroughly enjoyable process, a lot of work, due diligence and the like to figure out and put plans in place that we are now rolling out. But it was really, I really enjoyed the process with Chris Schubert and Daniel Ringland and the guys at Riot here in Australia to understand the OPL, where it's headed, and how we, as Sports Geek or SGE Sports, as the esports business is known, how we will help build out the ecosystem and help support esports as an industry, both here in Australia but also globally. So, it's been an exciting time. Obviously, that dominated October, and then to find out that we won the bid just before Melbourne Cup Day here in Australia, and then pretty much go from there to into free agency. And so that was November. Absolute madness. And I think the first important thing that I had to do in November was to hire someone to help me in free agency, because I think I know the sports business and how to run and how to market a sports franchise, but I did not know who was a good player, who wasn't a good player, who got along with who. So the first hire and one of the most important hires, and obviously for the team, was Brandon. So Brandon Defina, or Juves as he's known in the esports space, former pro player. So he was employee number one. And between the two of us, we were able to put together a roster that we just announced last week. And so while that was happening and putting together an OPL team, I was also able to run the Digital to Dollars workshop for the first time with a league. And so in that format, we ran it with 60 AFL club execs across, I think it was 14 of the teams, and the execs had different titles in the digital space and in the commercial space, so digital content and commercial, and so it really fit for the Digital Dollars process because there was commercial folk learning more about the audience and the insights and the stats that they've got available. And understanding, I guess, the digital team's point of view from a content and distribution point of view, and then the know your value, know your pitch was a good way for the digital and content staff to understand how to commercialize what they're doing. So it was I was to do it as a 1 day workshop at a league level. It took a little bit of work and a little bit of changing of some of the material, but relatively, and again, for most of the feedback has been really positive. The next step is now diving in on each club and helping them understand their audience, their content, their distribution, so what they're doing on the different platforms from a social media point of view, but also email, and then knowing your value. So that's setting up the rate cards and understanding what you're going to charge for everything, and then getting to the fun stuff of pulling apart and putting back together sponsorship pitches with appropriate valuations on your digital and appropriate upsell on digital activations potentially. So it was really good to get the Digital to Dollars process to develop that as another opportunity. So that works at a league level. And so that brings us to December, and it has been an exceptionally quick year. So it has been, December's been dominated by esports, but we have been doing a bit of Sports Geek work along the way, more than a bit actually. So we've now got a couple of different offers available. We've updated our consulting plans for retainer clients. So if you are looking for some assistance in any way, we do have some capacity. It is limited, obviously, with new work coming on board and also running an OPL team. But we can build out some bespoke offers if needed, whether it's short-term project work. But we do have 1 or 2 spots available from a retainer client point of view. So if you think that your team or league needs some assistance, a sounding board, a second opinion, a resource that your team can can lean on, please get in touch. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com, whether that is here in the Asia Pacific region, where I can do on-site workshops and the like, or internationally. We can do that via, like I said, GoToMeeting, Skype and the like, and have those catch-ups and help keep your digital team or your commercial team or your marketing team or your data team on track, and sort of keep them and help them along the way in 2019. So please get in touch. Additionally, what we've also added is a service where I'm actually helping businesses that are not specifically, they're not sports teams or leagues, which is pretty much the core of the work that Sports Geek has been doing over the last nearly 10 years. Next year is going to be 10 years. And so the Sports Geek process of producing content, producing emails, building out a list, building out a funnel, all the different ways that we've gone about marketing Sports Geek. I'm now taking that as a process and working with a few different businesses, some of them related to sports, some of them not, and helping them with building out what they do, whether it be in a content play, building out their funnel and the like. So if you're interested in that, if you're a listener and you say, I'd love to hire Sports Geek, but I'm not sport, I'm happy to work with you as well. You can simply go to seancallanan.com/growth for more info on that type of work. So in the past, we've worked with an accounting firm that specialises in sport. I've worked with a couple of authors in the space, a couple of other businesses, education businesses, and really diving in on what your business is and how digital can help. And then the other piece that's really developing, if I sort of look back early in the year doing workshops with the Matildas and the like, is the athlete training. So if you want a session with your players to say, these are the things you should do, these are the things you shouldn't do, here's the platforms that work, here's how to handle trolls, here's how to handle your security and privacy and protecting your ID, here's how to protect your family and your friends from potential trolls and problems. So there's opportunities in that space. If you have a group of athletes, whether it be at a pro level or juniors, we've got a few different products in that space of group training. And then what we're also developing is digital leadership groups. So taking 5 or 6 different digital leaders. So that might be the captains of the team, but it also might be athletes that put their hand up to say, I want to know how to best leverage digital, and helping them become the leaders inside the locker room. And so they get a bit more one-on-one or small group training, and they can become the resource internally in the locker room, but then leverage and lean on us if they've got any questions. So I'm really excited to roll that out more widely in 2019, because I still think athletes from a digital point of view still have a lot of upside. So yes, if you're interested in that, again, you can reach out to me, send me an email, send me a DM, or go to sportsgeekhq.social media athlete training, and you'll find some details there. And currently booking in dates to do some of these workshops in the first quarter of 2019. So those dates are starting to fill. They fit in a pre-season as something that happens, as in all the things that you do in a pre-season. But they don't have to be restricted to a pre-season. They can be done at any time. And I'm really of the opinion that every team should be getting an updated social media training session every year, because the platforms keep changing, and we can't simply say, "Oh, cool, all the players know Facebook," or that all the players know Twitter. The platforms keep changing, and so does the advice. So please, if you're interested in that, please reach out. And then, yes, the last piece has been the new OPL team. So the reason we did not have a podcast last week was that we were announcing the roster. Myself and Brandon did a live stream on the Sports Geek Facebook page and also on Juves' Twitch and also on my Twitter. I think we were on 3 channels at one point. So we've announced the roster. I'm really looking forward to the guys that we've put together, seeing them on the Rift in January 18 when we take on actually, I won't talk about that because I don't know if the draw is released and I don't want to get in trouble. But January 18 is when the season kicks off. And really looking forward to it. So if you have not looked at it, go back and look at it. But our team, Pabu in the top lane, recently come back from Las Vegas in the All-Stars event where he took down 3 of the best players in the world and was the talk of the internet. So really looking forward to Jackson. His gamer handle is Pabu. And if you look at the Pabu project, we've actually got a really exciting content play around Pabu for 2019. So Pabu is in the top lane. We've got Prayless, Jordan. He's our jungler. We've got Harry, or Hayri as his handle is. He is our mid, and he is a rookie. And so really looking forward to seeing what he can do in the OPL. And then we've got Raid, or Julian as his real name is ADC. And we've got Decoy, otherwise known as Daniel, as support. So that's going to be our starting 5. And so when you listen to this, if you listen to this straight away, we won't have announced the team name. That's the other piece of work that we've been doing, working on the fun stuff of coming up with a name and a brand and a logo and a colour scheme. So that will be out soon. So if you have not yet gone to newoplteam.com.au and signed up, I'd really love for the podcast listeners to get behind the team and really follow the journey. It's going to be it's going to be a big part of 2019, and it's going to be our case study for everything. So if you want to see what we do and the advice that I normally give with my clients, you'll see it with this team, because everything that I tell my clients we'll be doing with the team. So I'm really excited for what 2019 will hold in esports and in the OPL. So go to newoplteam.com.au. If we've announced the team, guess what? It'll redirect to the new website. And please sign up. I'd love your opinion. So that wraps up 2018 from episode 178 back in January with Wayne Swass to episode 222. Shout out to Richie Beno for the cricket fans out there. They will definitely get the reference of 222. I'm not going to do a Richie Beno impersonation because I'm terrible at impersonations. So we did 44 episodes, including this one in 2018, which doesn't quite hit the high of last year. Last year we did 47, but really happy with 44 as a number, considering all the travel and a few gaps, technical issues sometimes causing a few gaps. But I hope you enjoyed 44. Big milestone was passed. We passed 300,000 downloads overall in 2018, which is a terribly humbling number. I don't pay that much attention, to be honest, to downloads, and it is a big debate at events like Podcast Movement on podcasting analytics. But really, it's the only thing we've got to go on at the minute. So, I'm really pleased that 300,000 downloads have happened. And, looking into the numbers, we aren't far away from 100,000 in 2018, which makes 2018 our biggest year from a downloads point of view by far. So, again, if you're a new listener, thank you very much. If you're an old listener, or if you've been, I shouldn't say old listener, if you've been listening since the beginning, 200 odd episodes ago, thank you as well. Bit of a recap of the top 5 from a downloads point of view in no particular order. Steve Sammartino, his conversation earlier in the year around the future of sports was one of the popular episodes. I think I will invite Steve back, and I think we will talk about what 2019 holds early, probably in January. I always love catching up with Sama. Paul Rogers, now at AS Roma, continues to do amazing things in the digital space. And again, you've heard me say steal with pride. I will definitely be stealing a lot of what Paul does because he's one of the best in the business. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you should. Zara El Qudsi talking about the Grand Prix when she was in Melbourne was another one in the top 5. And then part of our CEO series, which has been really well received, Jeremy La Liga from the NBL. Was really good to catch up with him, and they've got a big year coming up and absolutely smashing it currently in the current season with Andrew Bogut starring for the Kings and attendance up across the board. Jeremy's doing an amazing job. And then, as I just spoke about earlier, El Guido sitting in his office at the 49ers facility in Levi Stadium. It was great to catch up with him, and I look forward to catching up with him when I'm next in San Francisco. And the good thing is about the top 5 is if you have not listened to Sports Geek previously, and one of the things that I have done in the last 2 years is kicked off the Sports Geek replay series where kicking off from Boxing Day, an episode a day where we go back and pick some of the episodes from the past. Most of them are from 2018, an episode a day until we return. And so we will return for 2019 after Sports Geek replay concludes. So the first Monday in January, we'll be back with new episodes. So that's 2018. One last thing. So from a Sports Geek Nation, I did mention it earlier, and I've been contemplating how to best do this. The Sports Geek Nation is coming up. The Slack community that started off as Sports Biz Slack is coming up on its 3-year anniversary. And so with that in mind, and the fact that I've had a lot of really good feedback on the community and the people who are in the community, and also I don't want to be selling the community all the time. So what I'm going to do in 2019 is close the community. So there'll be only limited windows to sign up. And so from January 1, there will not be an ability for you to sign up for Sports Geek Nation. So if you have been sitting on the fence and thinking, I will sign up eventually, because I keep hearing Sean talk about it on the podcast, that opportunity will not be there in 2019. So please, if you have not signed up, please do so. I'm going to offer, which I do offer to anyone who is connected with me. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn or you are a listener and I consider you connected, you can go to sportsgeeknation.com/connected for 25% off yearly plan. So if you want to get into Sports Geek Nation, I would highly suggest you do so before December 31. Now, from 2019, all members that are in the Slack community that are not signed up will be offered an opportunity to do so. They do not have to take up that opportunity. But from 2019, Jolly, who is doing an amazing job managing the community, she will be disabling access to Slack if you are not a paid member of the community. It's not a problem if you do not want to be there, but the opportunity for free lurking is over. It's not fair to the people who have paid and supported the community. So that is the plan for Sports Geek Nation. So if you have not signed up and have not become part of the community, please go to sportsgeeknation.com/connected. If you have a question, you can simply send Jolly a DM in Slack or email me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Thank you very much to all the people who have signed up. I really do appreciate it. So that's it. That will be the last call. I won't be doing host reads for Sports Geek Nation every single podcast that you might be skipping over. Hopefully you haven't skipped over this. Lastly, I want to thank, there's a bunch of people I want to thank, and in no particular order because I'm not ordering them and I'm not playing favourites, but thank you to James Eade. James edits the podcast and does an amazing job. So thank you, James, for making me sound better than I am and taking out some of the mistakes that we potentially make. It's a pleasure working with you. And then, as mentioned before, Jolly Grosp, aka Jolly G. That's G with 2 E's, like Gary V. Jolly does an amazing job, both keeping the content machine for Sports Geek humming along, managing the Sports Geek Nation community, and especially she's done an amazing job managing the AMA schedule. So if you have not checked out the Sports Geek Nation Ask Me Anything sessions, you are definitely missing out. We're getting some great both questions from the community, but some really open and generous answers from the guests. And Jolly does an amazing job pulling all that content together, planning it, and making sure it hits Sports Geek HQ and all of our social channels. So thank you very much, Jolly, for all your efforts in 2018. To Megan Filipuka, long time admin and holder of the Sports Geek Fort. Thank you very much, Meg. Your support for me, both personally and professionally, has been amazing again in 2018. Really appreciate it. Also, I want to thank Fawn Crabtree for stepping into the role of Chief Strategy Officer at SG Esports, helping pull together all things around the brand and all things admin and pretty much all things that fall off my desk. I really do appreciate the effort that you're putting in SG Esports and really excited about what it will hold in 2019. Brandon Defina, as I said, the first employee for SG Esports, for pulling together that OPL team, doing a really terrific job, moving from being a esports athlete to an esports general manager. You've really done very well in the first few weeks in the role, and you've done well guiding me through the first few weeks of being inside the esports community. Also, I want to thank the Sports Geek Nation community. As I said, it's an awesome community, very supportive, not only of me, but of each other. It's great seeing Sports Geek Nation members connecting both online in the Slack, but then meeting in real life. So, thank you if you're a member. If you're not a member yet, as I said, go to sportsgeeknation.com/connected and sign up before January 1. And then also I want to thank all of my podcast guests. The podcast would not exist if every episode was like this, where I'm the only one talking. I really appreciate you giving up your time and sharing your knowledge with the audience. There's a reason that I ask you to be a guest, and I've always thrilled, and I really love having the conversations both when the mics are on and when the mics are off. So thank you very much to all guests from 2018, and also a big thank you to Sports Geek clients, because if you did not keep coming back and asking me for work and advice on projects and what you're doing in the digital space, none of this would happen. So I really am terribly grateful that I get to do what I get to do, and that is all thanks to my clients. So I can't say a big enough thanks to that. And then the last thank you is to you, the listener. As I said earlier, I don't really pay that much attention to downloads, but I am very grateful when I get a message, a review or a note, or someone mentions it in real life. I really do appreciate you as a listener. If I'm going to steal with pride, I do agree with Gary V that your feedback is like oxygen. So your listenership and your sharing and your connectedness as a group continues to amaze me, and it's why I keep doing it. So thank you very much. So that's it. That's it for 2018. Until next time, don't forget the Sports Geek Replay series is going to kick off on Boxing Day. All of the episodes are well worth a re-listen. And if you missed them and you thought, I shouldn't listen to this, you should. There's a reason they're in the replay series. It's because we've got a lot of great feedback and there's a lot of really valuable info in them. And so I highly suggest you download them and give them a listen if you are taking a break. If you are traveling or taking a break over the Christmas period, safe travels. And until 2019, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.